About 3 days ago, democracy was defeated, basically 54 to 35. Three times in the past year, American democracy has been fucking tested. Once and most consequentially, it emerged victorious, but the subsequent two tests have not turned out as well, and that is a bleak omen for whenever the next test arrives. The first test came after the last fall's election, when more Americans voted for the Democratic candidate Joe Biden than for any other presidential candidate in history. Biden won the Electoral College by a wide margin, 306 to 232. The same tally that Trump had called a landslide when it carried him to squatting in the White House in 2016. He technically didn't win the White House. He basically got help from Putin. Despite this clear result, Trump has refused to accept the outcome. He and his allies insisted that he was the rightful winner and did their best to overturn the election, filing spurious lawsuits in courts across the country and pressuring local officials, the local election officials, to come up with more ways to either find more votes for him to disqualify, or basically disqualify valid votes for Biden, which technically is illegal to do. If not for the stubborn refusal of a few Republican officials in Michigan, Georgia, and Arizona, the push might have worked. This was the first test of democracy, and it passed. And when it became clear that this post-election effort was going nowhere, Trump had tried two new venues. First, he mounted a public campaign to pressure the vice squatter Mike Pence into forsaking his constitutional responsibility to certify the election on January 6th. And second, he summoned a crowd of sycophants to Washington for a boisterous Klan rally. Basically, he told them, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore, he warned. And then he did not tell them peacefully, he did not tell them patriotically, because they're not patriots. They're sycophants and a cult. He basically lied to them and said that he would march with them, which he didn't. But some in the crowd then launched a violent coup attempt, storming the Capitol. Democracy prevailed, but not without great damage, physical and psychic. In the aftermath, Congress had moved to impeach the squatter, Trump, for basically inciting this insurrection. And this would be democracy's second test. The clear majorities of both houses voted in favor, and the House voted 232 to 197 to impeach the squatter, Trump, and in the Senate, a sizable majority, 57 members, voted to convict him. But convictions require two-thirds of the Senate, and this is arguably wise. Convicting a squatter should not be easy. But it did not speak well for the courage and resolve of the Republican senators that only 7 of them voted to convict, nor that so many excused their vote by claiming, dubiously, that a former squatter cannot be impeached. Technically he can. And failing to impeach Trump, the squatter, Congress demonstrated the toothlessness of its oversight powers, and this was a defeat for American democracy. Unable to materially punish Trump, his critics asked merely that an attack on the very seat of government and their own workplace be investigated in a serious and bipartisan way, but today that proposition failed. And this was about 3 days ago. The Republican Party, minus a few senators like Bill Cassidy, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rob Portman, Mitt Romney, and Ben Sasse, voted to block even this meager step by refusing to vote for a cloture. A majority of senators, 54, voted for the commission, but the measure needed 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. That's another thing that is to be done away with. Only 39 senators voted against it. 11 senators didn't even bother to cast a vote in their defense. The outcome was all but certain, and how do you weigh a violent attack on your workplace against wanting to get out of town for a holiday weekend? Republicans as a whole were not willing to examine what happened on January 6th, and they wouldn't step aside and allow a majority of their colleagues to do it, and they wouldn't vote to let Collins introduce a measure that would have watered down a commission. The GOP was prepared to block any and every version of an investigation, and this too is a defeat for democracy. Protections of minority interests are essential, but nothing about a January 6th commission represented an infringement on the rights of any minority bloc, nor, for that matter, did certifying the election or impeaching the former squatter. But political observers have become so inured to the topsy-turvy expectation that a supermajority is required for any moderately controversial legislation that it feels normal when popular legislation with a majority of votes in favor fails. The commission, though, itself is perhaps inconsequential, although a bipartisan investigation would have carried more weight with the public, and this is why Republicans blocked it. and by their own public and private acknowledgement, other probes will continue. And besides, we already know what happened. Trump refused to accept the result of the election, and he incited an insurrection to try to overturn it. But as a proxy for Republican commitment to a peaceful transfer of power and respect for elections, today's vote is troubling. The officials who voted against the commission insisted they just want to move on from the dark events of January 6th, but there is a growing belief that if the 2024 election is close and the Republicans control Congress, they will hand the election to the GOP candidate, which is technically bullshit and illegal. The views of Republicans in D.C. might be irrelevant because the GOP officials at the state level are introducing laws designed to help their party and enshrine the minority rule. Perhaps these concerns are overblown, but watching today's vote in the January 6th Commission and the latest in a string of defeats and near defeats of clear majorities of the people and the representatives at the hands of the Republican minorities, it was hard to feel sanguine about the future of American democracy. Yeah, because basically the Republicans, what the Republicans are trying to do is that they're trying to make it to where a Democrat will never get elected in office again. If we get rid of the Electoral College, it will guarantee that another Republican would never get in again. That's why the Republicans want to keep the Electoral College, because it would guarantee that they'd get in. But if we got rid of it like we're supposed to, then they would never get in again. So fuck the Electoral College and fuck that filibuster, and we need to get rid of both.